Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm here at Patchwork Plus, and I'm going to show you how to make a really easy key fob. It's going to take us 10 minutes tops. So here's everything we need. Your kit is going to come with this larger strip of the background fabric, a strip of fusible fleece. This is going to be the finished size of our key fob, the finished width, and then this strip of accent fabric that's going to go on top. The nice thing about this key fob kit is that there's no tubing involved. You don't have to sew anything shut and then flip it out. We're going to fold everything over, and all of the stitching is going to cover up everything without you having to turn anything. The end result's going to look like this guy, but there's enough fabric here that you can make it shorter or longer if you want to, but everything you need to make one of these is included in this kit. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our accent fabric, this accent strip, and we're going to line up our ruler with half. And it's going to be, the strip is 1.5 inches wide, so you're going to line up your ruler at 3/4 of an inch. And if your fabric is not fully pressed, then you might have to do some wedging. Then what you want to do is you want to take a pencil. You don't want to get one of those iron away pens, because later we're going to iron this, and then if you have an iron away pen, it's going to go away. So we're just going to mark our line with a pencil. You're not going to see this later, so you don't have to worry about it coming off. And in fact, you don't want it to. So there's that. And now we're going to take this over to the iron. So the next thing we're going to do is we've got our accent strip here at the iron, and we've got this line here. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold the edge of our accent strip to this line, right like that. And we're going to go all the way down one side and then back up the other. So that way we're basically making a bias tape that's not on the bias.
So you're folding it to the center line?
I'm folding it, yep, I'm folding the raw edge to the center line. So that way it's all completely folded. And there's no raw edges on the top side. Steam is your friend, or best press is good too. I like using best press for it. So we'll do the other side now. And so careful, don't burn yourself. And you're going to press it in like that. So if you've got a bias tape maker, you could use one, but the line is just fine.
Which inch of bias tape would you use?
This is, it's going to be a 3/4 inch bias strip maker. Yeah. Okay. Or if you want it wider or narrower, you could use whatever size you want. The nice thing about this is that it's pretty customizable. I'll go all the way over to the end. And if you've got a clapper, that's a good time to use it. And then your right side will look like that. All right, so we have our accent strip. We're just gonna set that aside. We don't need it right now. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our fusible fleece, the glue side down. You can tell it's the glue side because it's more coarse. You can feel those bumps of glue. And you're just gonna kind of center it on your 3-inch strip of background. And now we're gonna take that to the iron and press it down so the fleece fuses with the... Okay, so I've ironed the fusible batting to my background strip. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold over the edges to the edge of the batting. So this is the finished width of our key fob. I'm gonna fold over the raw edge of my fabric to the edge of the batting. Okay. So I've got one side ironed down, and the other side we're just gonna iron down the same, and it's just gonna overlap. We're not worrying about that raw edge because that's gonna be covered up by our accent strip that we have ready. So right now all I'm doing is just folding the other side, so that way my strip of batting is completely covered by the background fabric. Okay, so I've got my background strip finished with the fleece, and I've got my accent strip. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn my background strip up to where that raw edge is, and I'm gonna take my accent strip and I'm gonna cover that raw edge with my accent strip. And if you've got some pins, you can pin this down if you want. I usually just hold it in place because now we're gonna go to the sewing machine and top stitch it down.
So a quick question, could you use that Steam-A-Seam 1/4 inch tape to hold it down for you if you really wanted something to hold it down?
You could. I typically don't because I'm lazy, but the Steam-A-Seam would be good for that. We do that with our bindings to hold them down so we don't have to worry about it later. Because obviously the pins introduce some bend and things. So you could Steam-A-Seam it down first, and that would hold everything in place while you sew it down.
So it's Steam-A-Seam 1/4 inch.
Okay, so we've got our strip. I top stitched my accent strip to it. So now all those raw edges are covered. And so you don't have to worry about turning or flipping anything because it's all sewn down together. So the next thing you want to do is just decide how long you want it. So what I usually do is I fold it in half, and then I figure out how long I want my wristlet to be. So we made that one, I think that was about 6 inches long. I've got one here that's 4.5. And so then I'm just gonna trim it to the width that I want it to do. I'm gonna do it with scissors now, but I would actually recommend you use a rotary cutter on a cutting mat to do that. Okay, so I've got it trimmed to the width that I want, or the length that I want. And this step, I actually am going to pin it because I want it to stay in place while it's hammer time. So now it's time to take your key fob hardware and just line it up in like that. And so you see how it is the exact width of the key fob hardware. So you don't even have to sew to close that raw edge there because the key fob hardware is going to cover it. And so now here's the tricky part, is you've got your hammer. I would recommend a rubber mallet. You can also use pliers or a regular hammer, but if you're going to use pliers or a regular hammer, use like a cloth to cover it so it doesn't get all beat up. And then we're just going to gently tap it. I like to tap it a little closed first just to get it lined up easier. And then I can stick. But don't overdo it. So if you're nervous about that part, just skip it. And then I've got it in, so now it's good and square. And then hit it good. And now it's closed.
One whack.
Yeah. 2 for good measure, but 1 whack will do it. And now you've got your key fob. And it's all done.
I love it. So you talk about, like, I always just hold them like this, but you can also, like you just did, put your wrist.
Yep, you can put your wrist in it. This one's small enough that I don't put my wrist in it. It's just easy for me to grab. You can also, while you're doing your top stitching, that's a good chance to make it custom. You can put your name on it, or I've got a little phrase here about boats. And that's just that's not even like an embroidery machine. That's just the letters in my machine. So you can do any kind of decorative stitch you want, or just top stitch it or whatever. But yeah, 1, 2 good whacks, 3 if you're not feeling like Paul Bunyan. But yeah, and then you're good to go.
Thank you.
So I've got my finished key fob, and then I'm going to put my key ring on. You don't want to put the key ring on before you hammer, otherwise it can mess up the balance and then everything won't line up correctly. So once your key fob's completed, then you can go ahead and put your ring on and you're all done.